Well, hey folks, Real Honestly with John Ritlin. This is a retro review for WCW Nitro and WWE Raw from January 4th, 1999. Yes, the Fingerpoke of Doom versus Mick Foley's WWE title win on a taped Raw that beat a live Nitro. Because WCW decided to be dumb and shoot themselves in the foot and downplay Mick Foley's title win, which was on tape, and basically say, you don't need to watch that show, you don't need to watch that show. And there were a lot of fans that loved Mick Foley, so they turned over or, used their remotes, because some people still had the weird dial TVs then. And they, decided to tune over there, and WWE got a huge boost. And then WCW, even with the main event that people wanted to see, shit all over their fan base, shit all over one of their top stars, and basically went back to the status quo and pretty much ruined the whole goddamn thing. And from there, WCW really went down a steep, decline, especially into later 99 when Bischoff got sent home. But that's another story for another day. This is about Raw. We're going to start off with Raw, which had recaps of Shawn Michaels being fired as commissioner, or was he? Because Vince and the corporation are in the ring talking about Shawn, running down the fact Shane was attacked recently. And then Shawn Michaels and DX, who had not been reunited for a while and had had some heat, with each other. They come out there and Shawn Michaels shows a replay of Vince McMahon getting number 30 in the Rumble. Oh no. Him and Austin get to be the first two guys in the 1999 Rumble, the worst Royal Rumble of all time, by the way. One of the worst goddamn Rumble. One of the worst Rumble events, period. The worst Rumble match of all time. I will not hear any arguments. I mean, as much as I hate some of them, 1999 was the worst Rumble, period. But Shawn does that, and Shawn says he has a stone cold surprise for Vince. Oh, and that Shawn is still the commissioner because he has an ironclad contract and not even Vince can fire him. I don't know who the fuck was above Vince. I don't know how the fuck this happened. Whatever. I don't know. Got a crowd pop. Cool. Ken Shamrock versus Steve Blackman. Lethal Weapon Steve Blackman. Non-title IC title match. Is alright. Dan Severn appears at one point. They really failed to capitalize on Shamrock versus Dan Severn, from the UFC days. And failed to capitalize on it. I don't understand why they didn't. It really would have done very, very well. Even if Severn was never the best worker in the ring, him and Shamrock would have been able to really do well. Shamrock is a little bit better in promos. Severn, maybe promos weren't his thing. He was legit as an ass kicker. Both men were. But yeah, that happens. Severn's in a neck break. Shamrock knocks him down. Billy Gunn runs in the ring. He's been feuding with Shamrock. Hits the famouser while the referee's distracted. A lot of distractions and run-ins on this and the other episode, and the episode of Nitro. And Steve Blackman gets pinned. Non-title again. 1, 2, 3. And then we get a Mankind promo where he's talking about, all this kind of stuff, and he says, it was a rare time where he was able to say the term "suck it" while not with the following word, "please." And you gotta laugh out of that. You gotta laugh out of that. Mankind was able to make fun of himself, and it worked really, really well. He wants to have a title match. He wants to have a title match at the Royal Rumble. Vince comes out, attacks Mankind, will not make him the number one contender for the title at the Rumble, but he gives him a match versus Triple H, and whoever wins gets in the Royal Rumble. So, we then have Mark Henry versus Goldust in a throwaway match, where it ends in DQ, but also Mark Henry gets distracted by Chyna and a friend of hers, Sammy, who actually turns out to be, I assume, a guy in drag, or maybe transgender. I don't really know exactly. I believe it was a man drag. Whatever, it doesn't matter to me, but I just found it really weird because it was like car crash TV stuff. That happened a couple weeks later, or happened like a week or two later. It was very odd. Not really good representation of anybody in this angle. But it was what it was. Goldust lost by DQ because he hit the Shattered Dreams in the corner, even though the ref never called for the bell, as far as I recall. And then Chyna and her friend, Sammy, have an offer for Mark Henry to be with him at the same time, and Mark Henry passes out. That was sort of funny. Dennis Knight is hanging around somewhere. No, Chris Benoit did not make his debut in WWE. That's right. I had to say it. I had to, because eventually you gotta just learn to laugh at some tragedies. But yeah, this was during the corporate, or not the corporate ministry, but the ministry and all this kind of stuff, and it was such bullshit, such fucking bullshit. But then you get Godfather and Test, and it ends up being a double DQ. Val Venus is on the stage. Val Venus, or double count out, I think, and then Val Venus is attacking Test. Test had some weird, twangy, redneck music, and it was really awkward. And then we get Triple H versus Mankind, with Shane McMahon as a ref, and there's some brief skirmishes, arm focus by Triple H, sunset flip, and Triple H manages to get the pin, and Shane fast counts Mankind down. So Triple H is in the Rumble, Mankind is not, and then Triple H says, this is just business, I'll go for the title however I can. He would especially do that right after SummerSlam when he beat Mankind for it. Another story for another day. But he says, this is for you, Happy New Year. Kicks Shane in the gut, pedigrees him, almost drops Shane on his head. Shane hadn't quite learned how to take bumps by this point. And Mankind gets Shane in the hold, threatens to break his shoulder, and there we have that. And basically, gets Vince out there with the Stooges and says, hey, you're going to give me a title match, and I want a title match tonight against The Rock and no disqualification. And Vince says, okay, you have your match. And he kind of hurts Shane a little bit more, lets him go. And then there we go with that. Now, Vince did say earlier that whoever does not protect Shane, there will be consequences. And that factors into here a little bit later. Edge versus D'Lo Brown. And this is where I'm going to get a little bit angry here, folks. This is where things are going to go a little bit nuclear. You may remember how I originally did Times in Wrestling to Piss Me Off series like years ago. Like I think it was about almost 3 years ago by this point. And then I did a Redux earlier this year. And you may remember something I talked about was Terry Runnels' miscarriage angle. Well, I didn't remember exactly what episode that happened on. It happened on this one. So you got Terry Runnels and Jacqueline as, PMS, Pretty Mean Sisters, because period jokes are funny. And sexism is also funny, but whatever. That was what the Attitude Era essentially was. Now, Jacqueline, one of the legit toughest women out there, she was, in the Hall of Fame. Terry Reynolds, also somebody who worked well in WCW and WWE as a valet, backstage announcer, that kind of stuff. I always liked her as Alexandra York. I always thought the York Foundation was an underrated thing, and I'm trying to stave this off here because, okay, Terry Reynolds is supposed to be pregnant. And she won't say who the father is. And they kind of have D'Lo in their group here, even though D'Lo's told them off before. And then, during this match, D'Lo hits a running powerbomb on Edge. Thankfully, no botches happened. Unfortunately, there would be a terrible botch that would end Droz' career later that year. That's not D'Lo's fault. It's not Droz' fault. It's just a terrible tragedy. So Terry Reynolds is kayfabe pregnant because Ed Ferrara and Vince Russo are idiots and decide to, make this kind of thing happen. And somehow Vince McMahon thought it was a good idea to greenlight it. That's the one thing I just don't understand. I know Vince has greenlit a lot of shit, especially later on after this, like the Katie Vick angle, let us never forget, and Heidenreich doing his poetry slam with Cole. But Terry Reynolds slips off the stairs. Okay. D'Lo's distracted. Terry slips off the stairs because D'Lo's telling her to get out of here. So she tries to get out of there, slips off the stairs. It's clutching her stomach, and it's terrible. And I think the match is called off. I don't think it was ever actually a finish. And D'Lo's upset. Okay, I mean, D'Lo, credit to everybody involved. Terry deserves so much goddamn better than this. Terry really did. 100%. Fucking disgraceful. And she gets put on the stretcher, and they wrap her in a sheet, and it's almost like they're putting her in a cocoon. I don't get what they're doing. But they take her backstage, and she's crying and clutching and talking about her baby, this kind of stuff. And it's just, she was never pregnant, by the way. I should clarify that in case I haven't yet. But the doctor, I think it was Francois, the French doctor, the one that would work on Mick Foley and talk about how his bone structure made it. So I think Cornette talked about where he says he's like a whale. He has no bone structure. It's just push in, push out. But anyway, and yeah, by the way, this is my reaction to the goddamn miscarriage thing. Yeah, I'm a fan of Cornette. You guys can come at me if you want. I don't fucking care if you do. The doctor says something to the thing is he's listening to her stomach. Listen to baby's heartbeat. And it says something like, I don't believe I hear the baby's heartbeat. I believe the baby's heart stopped beating. Wow. Now, wrestling's done plenty of bad taste stuff before. Plenty of bad taste. That was disgraceful. Russo and Ferrara should have been fucking fired right there for coming up with that idea. They should have been banned from the wrestling business, never allowed to be in there ever again. Now, is that the worst thing that happened in wrestling? No, it's not even the worst thing that happened that year. Like Bossman being hung in the cage, or, in Hell in a Cell, or Al Snow's dog getting fed to him, or the Kennel from Hell match, or Sting turning heel against Hulk Hogan because nobody wanted to boo goddamn Sting. That was WCW, but still, you get my point. This miscarriage angle was such an atrocity that I actually remember I was watching this and thinking, how in the world is WWE successful with shit like this? Now, they were successful. They were setting record numbers, record profits, that kind of stuff. They were selling out everything. They could really do no wrong, even when they did wrong on TV. This was an embarrassment. It was a slap in the face to any woman or any couple that can't have kids. And yes, I get it. Wrestling is good or bad taste done in good taste sometimes. And yes, there's going to be stuff that doesn't get over. There's going to be stuff that doesn't work. But this was unnecessary because it was with Terry and Jacqueline. It didn't help Terry. It didn't help Jacqueline. It didn't help D'Lo. D'Lo was made into a goddamn joke right around the Nation of Domination time, or at least, shortly after that. And it was never the same. I mean, even from there, I think he had to go to Impact after he got released in 2003 to even get back over and have some matches. And, have some pretty good matches, especially with, like, Monty Brown, but especially AJ Styles teaming with or feuding with AJ Styles. D'Lo and AJ had a pretty damn good feud, and D'Lo deserves a whole lot better than he got. This was a goddamn atrocity, a goddamn embarrassment, and whoever came up with it should be slapped in the face repeatedly. I don't care what the mindset was. And I don't even care if Terry signed off on it. They're the performers. I'm just a fan, but from a fan's perspective, if I were to show somebody this episode and say, hey, here's an episode of Raw I really like, they would get to that point and just look at me and say, you're an idiot, I'm never coming over here again, and leave. This was an embarrassment. An absolute slap in the face. And pretty much that's what Russo and Ferrara did to the wrestling business. Especially Ferrara, don't worry, I'll get to him. Because that Oklahoma character was another thing I ranted about. And at least one thing I'll credit Russo for. He did, at the very least, apologize to JR for it. Has Ferrara? I don't believe Ferrara has. I mean, if he has, then great, but Ferrara's a piece of shit also. And nobody should forget that. So now let's go to less Russo stuff. Kane beat up Briscoe and Pat Patterson because Briscoe and Pat Patterson did not save Shane from being beat up. And then he starts to choke out Shane. Kane does, that is. Kane choking out Shane, mainly on the plains, not in Spain, because Kane was born in Spain. This is a messy, messy joke here. Then Dennis Knight was taken by the Acolytes, and then later tortured. Whatever. Road Dogg versus Al Snow in a hardcore title match was actually pretty damn fun. I don't really care for Road Dogg. Al Snow's a pretty good goddamn worker. Road Dogg was over for his time. Terrible creative mind, but that is what it is. Table spots, there was plant usage, plants being thrown backstage. They went outside in the snow. That's smart. I mean, Al Snow in the snow, but where's this point? There's one line. I hated laughing at Lawler because Lawler at times really just annoyed me. But there's this traffic cone. Al Snow hits Road Dogg with it, and King says that's a snow cone. I'm like, God damn it. I love puns. That's just why I laughed at it. But there was a pile driver on some pallets that just happened to be outside, M1, 2, 3. That was a pretty fun match. That was actually enjoyable. If you see nothing else on the show outside the main event, this is pretty fun. And then Shawn ends up getting the keys from Triple H, and he gets the wrong keys, and he can't get into the car or back in the arena. And then he gets beat up by the corporation and put his face through the windshield. And then we get The Rock versus Mankind in a no DQ WWE title match with the corporation around ringside and DX around ringside. I do not need to summarize this match. Beyond saying the crowd was electric, and cue Chris, probably, if Chris watches this, he will probably be doing that song, because that's what I think every time. Thank you, Chris. You ruined the fact that anytime I say it's electric, that's what I hear. That's what best friends are for. We ruin stuff for each other. So anyway, this was a fantastic, just great atmospheric match. It was not anything great from a technical standpoint, but there was WWE title usage, all this kind of stuff. Vince did not want to see his golden boy lose. But in the end, DX and the corporation are brawling. Shane and Vince are there, and Kane's just standing there, I don't think doing anything. Austin's music hits, huge pop, runs down, grabs a chair, smashes Rock over the head with it, puts Foley on him, and I get goosebumps thinking about it, but 1, 2, 3, the crowd goes absolutely insane. Mankind is your new WWE champion, and ended up having his longest WWE title reign here. Longest WWE title reign of like 3 weeks. Seriously. Because I don't think I think his second one was just a little bit shorter than that, and his third one rather, was I think like a day. But that was the perfect cap, so perfect way to cap it off. So the hardcore title match and that and the Rock Mankind match were certainly a whole lot of fun. And now we're going to get to the Nitro episode and turn over my notes here. Yeah, the Raw episode was a mess, but finished strong. Nitro, however, did not finish strong. Nitro was not strong much at all. This was actually pretty shit outside of a pretty good cruiserweight match. In the Georgia Dome, first time since Goldberg won the WCW title, July 6, 1998, so nearly 6 months afterwards. Video package happening, Nash versus Goldberg 2, Electric Boogaloo, kicking off with a Nitro celebration. Nitro party in the Skybox. And then we get Glacier versus Hugh Morris. Yes, they were still having Glacier wrestle on WCW in 1999. I know he's still wrestling. The guy's a really good athlete. I mean, I'm sure even now, but they introduced it at the wrong time, so the gimmick was DOA. Glacier studied under Cobra Kai because he swept the leg, but Hugh Morris would end up hitting No Laughing Matter soon after, 1, 2, 3. And then recaps of Flair just going absolutely insane. And then finally we get the opening video package, like, Nitro and all the opening music and stuff like that. We are 17 minutes into the show and we finally get the opening credit. I don't understand what the fuck's going on here. But then Arn, Flair, Flair's family, Benoit did not get to any of them because they were able to run away because they were older than Daniel. There is my second Benoit joke per show. It was weird seeing a young Charlotte and a young David Flair. Reed really is sad about Reed. It honestly is. It really is sad about Reed. But yeah, there we go. So we had Flair. He was in the ring with everybody, including the Horsemen, including Mongo. Mongo, who was the worst member of the Horsemen. That's why I hate when people say, oh, Paul Roma's the worst member of the Horsemen. No, Roma actually isn't. I would actually rank Sid below Roma. Because Sid didn't need the goddamn Horsemen. I like Sid. Roma was at least a good tag team worker. What the fuck did Mongo offer? He offered bad commentary, he couldn't wrestle in the ring, and he generally looked fucking lost. And he's a former U.S. champion. How fucking embarrassing is that? But anyway, Flair runs down Bischoff, calls out Bischoff, runs him down and says, well, since I'm in charge, you're going to go to the commentary table. Eric doesn't say much of anything for the next couple hours. And Ric Flair brings out Randy Anderson, who had been battling cancer that Eric Bischoff had fired some time ago. I mean, obviously, kayfabe fired. And he was hired with double pay, and I mean, double the pay, this kind of stuff. So what was that, like $50? I kid. It's terrible. I mean, just sometimes they would go a little bit crazy with some of these stories, but cool. Okay, we also are at like a bunch of talking. Every show, each show rather, had like in the first 30 minutes, I think had 25 minutes of talking in like one match, or in the case of WWE, I think 2 matches, but a whole lot of talking. So yeah, anyway, then we get sold out hype. Ric Flair wants to face Barry Windham and Kurt Angle in a handicap match because Flair is already drunk with power, or drunk, he could be that. David is in the ring and says, I want to team with you. Because David Flair in a wrestling ring was such a great idea. It was not a good idea. It was not. He also didn't really want to wrestle, from my understanding, and I don't blame him. Because he was never going to live up to his name, Ric Flair's name. But yeah, that happened in Arn. Arn had to convince Flair, what, give him a chance. Bad idea, Arn. Why'd you do that? Stop that. Booker T versus Henry Hale, whoever the fuck that is. I don't know who he looked like a good athlete, or at least had a good, impressive look. Was a tall guy, and Booker T beat him with a meat missile dropkick. Meat missile dropkick. That's what I'm calling it. And so, cool. Norman Smiley versus Chavo Guerrero Jr. in a rematch from the previous episode, which, yes, I do an episode, or a review of the previous episode of Nitro, where Ric Flair had beaten Eric Bischoff. So it was nice to have the continuity. I'm only going to do select Raw Nitro reflections and select Nitro reflections because, honestly, A, my time's limited, B, I can only sit through so much wrestling. So anyway, yeah, it was fine for what it was. There was a bit of a botch by Chavo when he tried to dive off the ropes, but he recovered quickly, because Chavo's a pro. And he does roll up Norman for the win, and then Norman attacks him afterwards. Okay, whatever. Throws that play horse Pepe on him. And then we get Benoit versus Horace Hogan, and Benoit wins. There was a nice dive by Horace. It actually might have been the best Horace ever looked in a match. The crossface for the win, and Benoit taking out another wrestler's kid. Really gotta stop those jokes. Seriously, it's such a fucking tragedy that it's like I'm so I was so shocked by it that it's like, if I don't crack some kind of dark humor about it, I'm going to lose my mind. Watching the fact that one of my favorites basically snapped and did what he did. And yeah, Benoit was one of my favorites, so it's just hard to watch him in the ring. But anyways, this is the episode where they had Goldberg arrested because Miss Elizabeth accused him of aggressively stalking her. And I'm stumbling over my words because it's rock fucking stupid. So fucking stupid. Goldberg at this point could have been rebuilt even after the streak ending. And he wasn't on the show after Starrcade 98. That's fine. He was selling the whole thing of being shocked. This is how you bring him back. He's suddenly out there with a whole bunch of police, and since it's in Atlanta, he knows them, or at least a few of them, and beats them, and, was going to beat him up. I think he was, but he knew one of them and said, no, okay, we'll go there, but you know it's bullshit. You know I'm a stand-up guy. And yeah, then Goldberg gets arrested, taken in the back of this, Ford Escort or something like that. Or Ford Taurus. I think it might have been Ford Taurus. And I'm talking like a 1998 Ford Taurus. That was an unmarked police car. And I don't know why in the world they did that. Couldn't you have gotten one police car to do it? Whatever. Goldberg gets taken away. Kevin Nash is like, what the hell? I got a title match with that guy tonight. Then Hogan's laughing in the distance like the racist grandpa that he is. And it's like, I knew that he was a bad guy. Not like Hogan had anything to do with it. But whatever. We then get to, we get to Miss Elizabeth talking to the police and that kind of stuff. We then get Jericho versus Saturn, and there's a ref bump, and you find out why later. Jericho wins by DQ, because Jericho talked about how the referee does not deserve that kind of disrespect, and if Saturn bumps into him, he should DQ him. Yeah, that was a little bit later. Whatever. Jericho wasn't doing all that much after this. He was there for a little bit, and then I think was off TV, and then went to WWE. Goldberg gets arrested part 2. He's in the station, which looks like somebody's office. I mean, seriously, it looks like an office building or even looks like somebody's house. He was accused of stalking Miss Elizabeth. It was a mess, and they had those interrogations. Nobody fucking cared about this. Yeah, an LWO party. Because racism. Because racism is funny. Apparently, according to whoever did this. Now, this is pre-taped, obviously. Eddie Guerrero had just been in a bad car accident, which is unfortunate. But he had various members of the LWO and a whole lot of Latin women and this kind of stuff, and they were partying, and it went on for about 4 years. I like that they got some TV time, but this was the most TV time I think they'd gotten in a while that wasn't on Thunder, aka TV time that mattered, because Thunder didn't matter no matter how hard people worked on it. Kidman and Ray versus Hoovy and Psychosis. Enjoyable. Good stuff with a lot of near falls. Miscommunication at the end where Kidman accidentally drop kicks Rey Mysterio in the back of the head. He gets tossed out of the ring by Hoovy. Psychosis hits the big Psycho Guillotine for the 1, 2, 3. And there we go. So LWO members pin Rey Mysterio. Or, one of the LWO members pins Rey Mysterio. I think the LWO thing got dropped really, really quick because Eddie had been in that car accident and they realized the gimmick was going, or the stable was going nowhere. Stable wasn't going to go anywhere anyway because it was shit, no matter who was in the group, because they were talented. By the way, fun fact, Bret Hart, not on Starrcade 98. I don't think he was on Starrcade 98. And if he was, I don't remember what it was. He was not on Nitro. And he was not on this Nitro. Now, I know he was part of Thunder because they wanted him to be an anchor on that show. But seriously, it was shit. It was such unbelievable shit. It was ridiculous. So yeah. Then we get a Kevin Nash promo. And he says, well, I know who did it. It's Hogan. I want a match with Hogan. Flair comes out and says, okay. That's about it. That's about the size of it. Miss Elizabeth interrogation. She was talking about, I'm the victim. Sure, she said that about Lex a number of years later. Terrible what happened to Miss Elizabeth. Lex Luger is a piece of shit who will go to hell for what he did. And then, of course, you get the famous line where after Hogan says he will face Nash, comes out, and, Tony Schiavone fed the line, by the way, let me make that clear, says, Mick Foley's going to win the world title. Oh, that'll put some butts in the seats. Again, Tony was told to say what he said. I actually feel bad for Schiavone getting that much hate. And I used to give him some hate for it. And that was my mistake. I own up to that right there. But then we get Scott Steiner versus Conan in a TV title match. And Conan wins by DQ, I think, because he had some interference by Buff Bagwell, and it was a mess. It was a rematch from last week. And then Tony Schiavone, again, during this match, downplays Foley's title win. Again, fed the lines through his headset. And Conan gets beat up afterwards. And Buff Bagwell acts like an egotist. That's about it. And then we get Wrath versus Bam Bam Bigelow. They brawl some, they wrestle some, and they fight to a double countout. That's really about it. Then Miss Elizabeth gets caught lying. And then Goldberg sent back to the arena, or drove back to the arena. They never bothered to remove his handcuffs, but now we get to the finger poke of doom. Nash versus Hogan. WCW title match. And this is where it's going to get a little ranty. Because I've heard some people make this comparison. But okay, you have this big pomp and circumstance, this kind of stuff. Hogan gets, a big entrance. Nash gets a big entrance. We have 6 minutes and we just ring the bell. 6 minutes. And the finger poke of doom happens once again. That's my face. The finger poke of doom. Nash shoves Hogan into the corner. Does this, all this kind of stuff, and then poke. Nash falls down. 1, 2, 3. Hogan is suddenly the WCW champion. Bischoff comes alive during that match, basically, because, it's all a ruse and everything. And even though Bischoff's out of power owning WCW, the NWO still runs WCW. And you got this reformed NWO, even though the NWO had kind of been knocked down. You had it's Nash, Hall, Hogan, Steiner, Luger, and a few others. I think Buff might have been in there. I think Henny might have even been in there. But the whole point is they had some guys that they had like a core group of like 7 to 8. And Nash's whole idea that he said on Legends of Roundtable, Legends of Wrestling Roundtable rather, was to build a heel machine to feed Goldberg, and then his timeline of events was way off because they were going to build a Hogan versus Goldberg at Starrcade 99, but then Goldberg got hurt. Right, I think it was right after Starrcade. Here's the problem with that, though. You couldn't have continued that for a goddamn year because WCW already fucked it up with Sting versus Hogan, and they did. I don't want to hear anybody say otherwise. They did, because Sting was never the same, and Hogan, it was just a stroke of his ego. My opinion. I know Bischoff has said otherwise. He was there. I wasn't. I'm giving my perspective as a fan. I'm not gonna discount anything that Bischoff says. But that's my opinion. But now, this finger poke of doom thing, Goldberg runs out there without with the handcuffs still on him, by the way, double handcuffs. So he should have used them as a weapon, but people are starting to throw trash in the ring because they don't like the fact Hogan's champion. He beats some people up, hits a spear on Goldberg, he hits a spear rather, on Hogan, Goldberg does. And then he's in the ring, gonna go for the jackhammer. Lex Luger's in there, is gonna save him, and then he attacks Goldberg and puts him in the torture rack. And then they rip Hogan's shirt and spray paint him. And spray paint his head. And it's a horseshit finish, and it fucking killed WCW. It was a fucking rotten embarrassment. I mean, I was embarrassed to watch WCW after that. And they still had a solid undercard, but it was reforming something that already had ran its course probably about a year before. If Sting had been the one to finally destroy the entire NWO at Starrcade 97, cool. Because the NWO didn't need to keep going. It didn't. And it was fucking rotten. But now I'm going to get to what people have compared this to. People say, oh, this is just like when Triple H and Shawn Michaels did the thing with the European title at, the Raw Christmas in 97, this kind of stuff. Let me tell you why it's not the same thing. One, the European title already didn't mean a goddamn thing, because even though Davey Boy Smith was a hell of a champion and an incredible worker, and it's so sad he's not in the goddamn Hall of Fame, guess what? He made that title matter as much as a second or, secondary or, thirdary, I don't think it really matters, maybe not even secondary title could. And then Shawn Michaels won and barely defended it and this kind of stuff. And then Triple H did that. But the thing is the European title was not the main title. This was the main title. WCW had every chance, every goddamn opportunity to wipe the floor with WWE here. People knew the results, even on the infancy of the internet. They knew that Foley won the title. And they still turned over. Because WCW shot themselves in the goddamn foot. I hate that WCW did this stuff because they got so cocky that everything got ruined. Everything got fucking ruined. So even the hardworking talents couldn't get over because you couldn't get the old fucking stupid fat fuck veterans out of the way. And yeah, I mean, I know a lot of them were in good shape and everything, but I'm just sorry. These old crotchety bastards, they couldn't get out of the way. Yeah, they were tagged, or they you know, they were brought in on big contracts and everything and tagged with these labels of like being just out for themselves. Some were, some weren't. Savage liked to put over a whole lot of younger talents. He did that with DDP, even though he ended up winning the feud. DDP was hotter than ever. Oh, and DDP also faced Brian Adams earlier in this show. I totally forgot about that. Hit a diamond cutter off the ropes. Bit sloppy, but not on DDP, not on Brian Adams. Just happens. WCW shot themselves in the goddamn foot and it's fucking ridiculous. And I'm fucking embarrassed that they did. So no, the Fingerpoke of Doom, way, way worse. There's no comparison. It killed WCW. Even though WCW would still have some big ratings at that point, nothing was going to bring it back. And then they brought in Russo, and I'm not even going to rip on Russo again, because you know what really killed WCW? The corporate merger. The AOL Time Warner merger. That's what fucking killed it. Nobody in creative, nobody whatever, nobody that oversaw creative, nobody that ran WCW under the corporate merger label could save it. But this was before that. And this was before the merger really happened. And it was fucking rotten. And I hate it. So you had Hogan and Nash. Yeah, this was fucking bullshit. And Nash can defend it all he fucking wants. Whatever. He tears his quad every time he moves. Hogan, I don't care what the racist grandpa has to say. It was a terrible, terrible, 100% bad move. So that's all I gotta say. So yeah, Raw ended up winning this whole damn thing. Right here, Return the Tide. And yes, this is a long review full of rants. Thank you guys very much for sitting through this. I really do appreciate it. Agree, disagree with what I said, like, share, subscribe, Twitter handle in the description. It's been real awesome with John Ritlin, and I will see you soon.